Hi there, and welcome back to another episode on Let's Talk Football Careers. With today's guest, a very recognisable face, Pat Nevin. How are you doing, Pat?
I'm very, very well. I'm just making sure that I'm semi-professional by turning off my phone, so you're not annoyed. But yeah, absolutely fine. All good at the moment.
I've seen me do that many an interview, trying to twiddle with my phone and switch it off as it's going on there. But
before we get started with today's podcast, we would like to introduce our sponsor, Kingdom Coatings, the leading roof and wall coating company in the UK, partnered with STV.
So, Pat, where do we start? I see you've got a playing career of over 800 games spread over 6 different clubs. You've got a variety of honours, 28 Scotland caps, and I've also looked in here, you're right into your music as well, so we'll get onto that as well, Pat. But if you could just start for your youth, really, as a young lad, up till when you sort of started making it in football, please.
Well, strangely, I'm one of these people who never looked back in his career for decades, because you play football, what you do is you move on. But recently I've written a couple of books, and I had to really look back in it. So I actually can tell you some sense now because I've looked back and I've thought about it and I've looked at old diaries. And the most important thing to remember is I never actually particularly wanted to be a footballer. I love playing it. Things had gone well as a kid. I was in S form at Celtic, but I still didn't want to be a footballer because I was studying, I was doing a degree. All my brothers and sisters, they'd all gone on to do degrees. So when Celtic let me go, I was all right with that. It was fine because I was going to do a degree. And it was just a few months later, I get back into it, ended up playing with a boys' club called Gartcosh United because I love doing it. And it was from there that I had a kind of lucky accident one day. We had a week off, and our manager organised a bounce game against Clyde reserves apparently, and me and my mate had a bet, and the bet was who could score the best goal, and whoever scored the best goal bought the other one an album. Anyway, I scored a decent one. So did he. And as I was walking off the pitch, this wee guy was standing on the side, and he goes, "Do you want to come and play for Clyde?" And I went, "I'm doing a degree, mate." And he went, "Well, we're part-time. And because we're part-time, it wouldn't affect your degree." I went, "I don't know. I've never really wanted to be a footballer. I just love playing." And he said, "We can give you 35 quid a week." And I went, "Where's the pen?" I want to sign it right now. And that's how it came about.
And that was, you were at Clyde from 1981 to 1983. I believe it was Craig Brown was there as well, eh?
Well, he was that wee guy that was standing on the side. It was Craig Brown who was watching me playing that.
Madness. Clyde, so Clyde obviously though, Pat, Clyde in 1981, were they sort of on the rise, Clyde, then? Because obviously now there's a different side of Clyde, from what we see now to 30, 40 years ago, but were they a good side back then?
They were in the third tier when I arrived, and it took a couple of us from the boys' club, myself, a guy called Tom McQueen, who went on to play for Aberdeen, and a couple of others. And that year we went on and won the league. So the first year there, we won the league, got up to the second tier, still playing down at Shawfield, 400 or 500 people there. But to win the league the first season was brilliant. I managed to get Divisional Player of the Year that first season as well. And I still wasn't interested in being a footballer, even though I was one. It's just kind of weird because I was enjoying my degree. I had all the other stuff I was doing as well. But also then at that point in time, I get dragged into the Scotland under-18 setup. And that went pretty damn well as well. And some people might have seen there was a documentary on last year that I made called The Lost Final. It really is brilliant. Not because I made it. It's a really good fun. And we won the European Youth Championships. And I scored in the final, got player of the tournament. So this big effort of mine not to be a footballer was failing miserably. So it was good
you tried.
Well, no, I was trying. That's the dichotomy of it. I was trying to be as good as I could. I was very dedicated to it. I was a distance runner as well. So, it wasn't that I was trying less or doing less work. And it was just that I had no big ambition to be a big famous footballer. So, but after the second season, where again, I got another Young Player of the Year award in Scotland. Well, Chelsea had come in after the first season and tried to buy me, and I said no, because I had to finish my degree, I thought. And then after the second season, which was a tougher season for us, but we survived it in the division. And Chelsea came in again. And it was just at that point I thought, oh, I might as well give it a go. You know, I might as well, you know, and there is the whole idea of Chelsea had a decent sized team. They were in the second tier down there at that point in time. And
that Ken Bates.
Well, Ken Bates was the chairman. The manager was a guy called John Neal. Ian McNeil was the assistant manager, and they'd all kind of made it their business to try and get me to sign, as I kept on saying no all the time. But eventually I did. I thought I'll take a 2-year sabbatical for the degree, go down there. Now, there was the outside chance of making it, but I cost buttons, you know, 95 grand. The same week I went down, Charlie Nicholas went down to Arsenal for Celtic. He was the big noise, I wasn't. And so it was great because I could turn up there and nobody really knowing me, no expectations. Didn't even think I would get in the first team because I was only 19, just turned 19. So that was, and the main reason for going down there is I quite liked the adventure, and I could see a lot more gigs in London than I would do in Glasgow. So I'll go there for 2 years.
Yeah, as a 19-year-old to be down in London from, you know, just being a Clyde, but everything that come with it, like you say, the music scene and everything. I mean, if you could touch into it a wee bit with the music scene, I mean, I read that you weren't into your usual sort of Phil Collins and all, you were into Joy Division and things like that.
Just being Glaswegian, you know, just we do what we do. We are who we are. We don't go along and follow anybody. We do what we are. And when I was in Glasgow, I was going to see bands like The Fall. I was going to see, I remember a very young Simple Minds. Many times seen them in the first couple of albums.
The first band I've ever seen live was Simple Minds, eh?
Well, that would have been a great time to see them. I'm guessing that was around Empires and Dance or New Gold Dream sort of area. So it was a brilliant era, and they had some great music then. But I was into my music in a big kind of way. So it kind of fitted in that I wasn't looking for fame. I wasn't looking for fortune. I just wanted to enjoy myself. And I think playing football should be enjoyable. So when I went down to Chelsea, that was the whole gig. That was the whole idea. Get down there, enjoy it, see what happens. The last thing I expected was to get into the first team after about 4 weeks. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what?
And you enjoyed your time at Chelsea. I mean, there was a lot of Scots in there as well. I've got in here Duncan Shearer, David Speedy, and Derek Johnson. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, Joe McLaughlin, Kevin McAllister, Stevie Clark. There's millions of us. Honestly, the place was absolutely alive with Scots. It was great. And it's a good thing to have that. Another younger one's a guy called John Miller, who went on to play for Hearts, was a great friend of mine as well. So it was a great Scottish contingent down there. But that first season, there was 3 or 4 of us in the team. And we always had a real good spirit and real fighting spirit. Big Derek Johnson came down, didn't really get many games because we had a centre forward called Kerry Dixon, who was a brilliant goal scorer and couldn't really get a game from. Same for Duncan Shearer. And we had Billy Dodds was in our reserves, and he couldn't get through because Speedo was in front of him, and Kevin McAllister couldn't get through the first team because I was in front of him. So there was a lot of decent players down there. But that first season was extraordinary. Turned up first season. And remember, I've had a great time at Clyde. I'm winning things up there. Come down. All we do is we go and win the league right away, first season. We managed to score a huge amount of goals. And it was amazing. And I get player of the year the first season. So, you know, from somebody who's trying not to be a football player to be player of the year at Chelsea when he's 19, so all went a bit weird.
Right down, discussed League Cup semi-final, 84-85 season versus Sheffield Wednesday. Was that again that you were behind and you ended up, well, you can tell the story.
Yeah, it's we did, we
2 legs,
was it 3? Maybe 3 legs, actually. Anyway, it was a 4-4 game up at Sheffield Wednesday where we were 3-0 down. And we got back to 4-3 up, and then we gave away a penalty, so we had to take them back down to Stamford Bridge, and we beat them 2-1 down there. I made the first goal, which was one of the best goals I've ever made. This kind of mad scoop over about 8 Sheffield Wednesday players were trying to kill me. Got through and flicked over to Speedo to score. But it was a big thing. Sheffield Wednesday were a team we hated. They hated us. We were a kind of skillful team, and they were a big kind of lumpy, kind of batter into you kind of team. Both of us ended up going up that season, but we beat them in the league. So it was a real moment. You ask many Chelsea fans, and you go on YouTube and you can put in 4-4, and it's a great wee game to watch, brilliant atmosphere. But we had so many great memories that first season. There's many Chelsea fans. You think of Chelsea fans, all the success they've had since then. There's a lot of Chelsea fans that come up to me and say, that is my favourite season ever. Because we were scoring so many goals. We were exciting to watch. And the team before that had been a nightmare. That stinking. But we brought in a whole bunch of new players and we all hit the ground running. So it was a great start to my career down there.
It's all the Scots that caught the term that I've managed to find a way of saying that it doesn't matter who I'm speaking to and what team they played with. I've managed to integrate Scots being the way that actually I'm trying to convince myself a wee bit, I think. But I mean, speaking of Scotland, I mean, you made your debut during your time at Chelsea as well. Could you explain what's actually happened here, right? You've had 28 caps. You played in all the qualifiers, I believe, but then you missed 2 World Cups. That's got to hurt, eh? To then be called up in '92 to play in the Euros, eh?
It might surprise people to hear that it didn't hurt that much. My attitude was a bit weird because, I wanted to go. I was in the squad just before the World Cups, dropped for the World Cup, then in the team right after it. And if you're going to be a wee bit kind of cynical about it, you could say, well, the Celtic and Rangers players turned up for the the main ones and they get picked. But it was more than that. There was lots of reasons for it. But in the end, I thought one thing. I mean, particularly things like it was either me or Gordon Strachan for the first one, and if Fergie was choosing it, he was always going to pick Strack. But I always thought to myself, unless I'm absolutely good enough, don't bother. I'm not worried about it. If I was the best player in the team and I get dropped, then I'd be really miffed. But I just get on with it and never worried about it too much. By the time '92 came, later in my career, I kind of wanted to go to major championships, and I got to the Euros then. But missing those World Cups, I remember thinking at the time, we weren't playing with wingers. We were playing a 5-3-2. So if I was going to get a game, it's going to be as a striker, which is my favourite position. But we had plenty of good strikers then. So I'd have ended up going, to Mexico and Italy and sitting on my backside on the bench. So I had 3 weeks of holiday instead, so that's my way of doing it. I was watching a team that was one to win. But that's the way.
And that, even watching them, was that when you were watching them, you think I should have been there, or just didn't?
Honestly, it's not that I didn't care. It's just that life happens. I mean, there's a lot of people. You watch a footballer coming off and greeting because he doesn't get what he wants. I.e., he gets to a World Cup or years. Wait a minute. What a life you've got. You're getting paid to play football. I'm very simple on that sort of thing. So I'm not going to sit and get upset and get selfish about not getting something like that. I've got a great job playing for Chelsea, then Everton and all that. I'm not going to walk about saying woe is me. I mean, there's people in jobs and not in jobs and having hard times have got a right good reason to be upset. So never the way I never looked at it that way, ever.
Yeah. You come across as probably the most grounded football player ever. It's like talking to a football fan here. You're understanding the ethics and ethos that the football fans believe in as well. And I think you've managed to keep that even to the current day. You're very grounded, Pat. You've never let it get to a level.
I think because I always just remember you're just kicking a bit of leather about, and you're getting paid for it. It's brilliant. And I've been dead lucky with all that career. I suppose coming from Glasgow's part of it, coming from a background, also an education that I had as well, and just a reality about life. There's certain phrases I hear. See, if I ever hear a football player saying, I'm not getting the respect I'm due, honestly, I want to punch him. I can't be bothered with that. I've no time for it at all. Harry, you make a great point. See what you're saying there? I sound like football fans. Do you know why that is? Because I'm a football fan. That's why
I'm a football fan. Eh? You're a football fan. You read it. Eh?
Exactly. And I happen to be playing for a while, and I'm no longer playing, but I still love the game, still love the skills, still love all that side of it, and still want my teams to win. So I'm absolutely no different for that. So I'm not trying to be grounded or anything like that. It's just me. It's just who I am.
You're right. Aye. I mean, I'm looking back here. I mean, with Chelsea, you were there, what was it, 5 years you were at Chelsea, and then the Chelsea got relegated the season that you left, so that was probably Chelsea's fault for getting rid of you there.
Well, no, really, it's kind of weird though. They were really unlucky. It's really complicated. When we finished fourth bottom, we were the 5th top goal scorers in the league. But we had a problem, particularly in goals. And the coaching had gone bad. There's new coaching that hadn't worked well. But I would have stayed. I'd have been happy to stay. But they needed the money. So I knew 3 months before I was leaving Chelsea. So I knew I was going. But it didn't stop me trying to keep the team up. I'd agreed to sign for Paris Saint-Germain, and I was going to go there. I hadn't talked to them, but an agent had sorted this out. I didn't have an agent, but some agent had come in and sorted this out. And then just at the last moment, I left Chelsea and I was gutted for them. But I kind of knew they were a good club and they'd come back up again. But right at the last moment, I was my girlfriend on a beach in Corfu with a scruffy place where the Australians, when your backpackers all go, because that's the kind of holiday I like, a normal one. And phone call, guy came running down for the taverna I was staying in, and he said, "Mr. Nevin, there is phone call. It's important." So I had to run up and, what is it? And it was my flatmate back in London saying, "It's Everton in the phone calling Harvey, wants you to sign." And I went, "Aye, all right, tell him I'll sign." And that was it.
Tell him I'll sign.
That was it. There was none of this.
And it was better luck because.
Yeah. So it was the end of the contract. I was leaving, didn't have an agent of my own. So I got in touch with, I met up with Colin. Colin Harvey was going, "What the hell's going on? He's not talked about money." And my flatmate went, you don't know, Pat, he's not like that. He said if he'll sign. Just pay him some nice money and he'll be all right. And
I think because of that attitude, the money came with it. You enjoyed yourself. It helped.
Yeah, and I've been like that through my whole life. You know, you could chase every penny if you want. But I've been lucky enough to do some jobs that pay all right. So, you know, maybe if you push, you get a few more quid, but does it make you that much happier? And they're good to work with if people say you're dedicated it for the right reasons for it. But I went up to Everton to meet them. And as soon as I met the manager, I thought, brilliant guy. And they were some team. Because a step, Chelsea to Everton in those days was a big step. Yeah, brilliant guy. But you're thinking that's a team that had won European trophies. That's a team that won leagues, the top league, and I'm going to join them. So you know, it was a bit of a no-brainer as well. So it was a really exciting time. Unfortunately, third game in, snap cruciate, and that was a lot of my time at Everton was quite unlucky. Managed to get to a cup final. I scored the winner in the semi to get to the FA Cup final. But of course, that was the semi-final was the day of Hillsborough and the other semi-final. So nobody ever saw that goal. It was never shown. So we played in the final, which I didn't think should go ahead, but Liverpool were some team. But it took us to, it was 3-2 after extra time. And by the way, to get the Scottish thing going again, Stuart McCall scored 2 that day. but it was still a good team. Still a right good team, but never quite reached the heights they should have done.
No, but I think you came off the back of their successful period as well. I mean, I've put down here right player at Everton, but unfortunately at the wrong time. They had slumped after their most successful period, winning 2 leagues and FA Cup. But I mean, you still enjoyed it there. I mean, you still had a great time, didn't you?
But you did, and the fans are still brilliant. My job these days is obviously covering football for the Radio 5 Live, etc. And I often go to Everton, and it's brilliant. The reaction, the kind of love that the fans have for you. I mean, they're a real football club. They're not a big corporate entity. They're still a real football club, and I love them for that. Love the fans as well. But they were because their expectations were so high. It's a bit like, you know, you come in the top 6 now if you're Everton, and they're going, "Wow, that's great." And I know in those days, no, unless you win a cup or win the league, that's not good enough. And I like that. I like that attitude. So, but there was some great memories, and I can't go down there without someone someone will say the phrase, "What about that goal against Man United?" And you know, sort of stuff. A particular goal I scored against Man United. I scored a few, but there was one against it's a scoop really. But the best bit about it was a 1-on-1. And of course, it was Jim Leighton, and he was often my roommate with Scotland. So I don't think he was very happy with it. But the best part of it was playing on the other side. On the other side was my best mate, was playing for Man United that day. So I could stick it up Brian McClare.
I mean, a few players have mentioned. Who's the talking Scots, who's the best Scottish players you've played with? I mean, when your time at Scotland and the teams we mentioned, I mean.
Well, all the way through my career, and I mean all the way through, on 4 different occasions, Celtic tried to buy
If you
me.
can just
Yeah, and it's funny because I, in the end, never had a choice. It was always the clubs wouldn't let me go. But there was a period where you had like Paul McStay, John Collins, Tam Boyd. Rangers were doing great at the time because they had all the big names up for England.
Yeah.
And I played with Scotland with Paul and that, and I thought John Collins was a brilliant player. I absolutely put John Collins in the modern game and he'd be even better. He's phenomenal. He was, even though he's rated highly, he's better than people think. So there was players like that were great, but I was really lucky. I played with Dalglish, Souness, you know, a big long period, and some great goal scorers like Coisty, like Mojo, like Chalky. I mean, you go through the whole teams and there were brilliant players. I think Richard Gough was up there with the best defenders in the world for a period of time. So, and that's before you start getting on to the centre backs like Hansen and McLeish and the rest of them. You know, so we weren't struggling for world-class players back then, and it was brilliant to be in teams like that. And there was a couple of games where I was in one wing and David Cooper's in the other wing. And, you know, he's a player. He was a player. So, lovely thing you've played with all those guys. Great guys to play with and great guys to work with.
Yeah. What was David Cooper like then? As a player, is he the best natural talent? I mean, you're going to try to model a little bit your game on that as well, eh?
When your roof is tired and seen better days, don't replace it. Reach out to Kingdom Coatings, the roof protection specialists. Our specialist roof coating has helped thousands of homeowners across Scotland protect their roofs by providing resistance to adverse weather and helping to extend the lifespan of tiles. And with our 10-year peace of mind guarantee, we know protecting your home is important. It's your kingdom after all. Contact the experts today for a free no-obligation quote. And remember, prevention can be the best cure.
I never seen much of Coops because I'm down in England and he's up in Scotland. So the only time I've ever seen him really was when I played with him, you know, at Scotland. He was awfully quiet most of the time, quite intense guy. But I just loved the skills. And at the time, you know, when I was playing down south, and there was a lot of right good players downstairs, like south, like Chrissy Waddles and John Barnes and all that. So, but he was up there with that standard. And that's saying something. That really is saying something because they were world-class players. But around about that time, there was a lot of very, very good wide attackers. We call them wingers, but they were wide attackers mostly. And Coops could be mentioned absolutely in with all of them.
Yeah. And I mean, you see it now, and I was speaking with, I think it was Matt Jarvis was saying that. He says, you see a lot of players now saying their first thing, especially wingers, is their first thought is to actually pass player 1-2. He says, my first thought, and I shouldn't say with yourself, was to beat the man. You want to entertain it.
Yeah, 100%. I find it very frustrating watching a lot of the games I go to see. I mean, watching Jack Grealish when he first broke onto the scene, amazing. Just went at people all the time, amazing. Yet now, he just turns away, goes inside. And there might be a variety of reasons for that. You know, they double up on you, defenders, etc. But, you know, just you need to be brave. You need to go for it. You need to try it. You need to take a chance. You need to take risks. But, you know, the game adapts, it always adapts. But if you look at the game, it doesn't matter. You know, the lad Messi's quite good at going by people. You know, it's quite good when you go by people. Anyway, but the game changes. I mean, for me, even the wing stuff was hard for me because I'd never really played as a winger before I sort of turned professional. And even when I played with Clyde, I was a striker or a second striker or centre forward. So I was more of a central player. But over the career in those days, if you're a wee guy with skill, you stuck you out wide. Whereas now, if I was playing in the modern game, I wouldn't be an out-and-out winger like that. Wouldn't be like that. The player that I most closely feel I played the style of is David Silva. So you think of him as an attacking wide winger, somebody who could play in 10. And may I underline, I wasn't as good as him, but that was the type of play that I played.
But I mean, who was your idol growing up? Who did you look to say, right, that's who I'd like? Or did you just watch football in general and take bits for people.
Oh, it's just lucky. But my dad had been a coach with kids and all the rest of it, and we'd go to see it. We'd go down sometimes and watch Celtic because we're all Celtic fans. My family, we're all Celtic fans. And I remember the time, it's just at the end of the Lisbon Lions. And you're talking Jinky, Bertie Auld, phenomenal players in that team that won the European Cup. And then the period that came after that, I was going to watch them every week. And you had Kenny, and you had Lou McCarry, and you had Davy Hay, and you had Danny McGrain, and you had George Conley, and you think, they're unbelievable players. And they were absolutely, some of them world class, most of them top international class players. But I didn't have a hero. I didn't have the posters on the wall. I didn't do that with football folk. I felt more like that about musicians. But I admired them as footballers. But see, the idea of me being like tongue-tied in front of them, no, that wouldn't have happened. And by the time I was at 15, I remember going through, when I was 15 or 16, I was at S-Form and trained in the summer with the Celtic first team. I didn't care. I'll still beat you. I'll still have a go at you. No. So it's a funny, confident attitude.
Probably Celtic's most successful time. The players that you've named, the managers that are in there, and never even playing in front of the big crowds. Did that never bother you? No stepping in front of the big crowds or that?
Something weird happened. I was quite quiet when I was young. Seen as a bit kind of slightly eggheady kind of thing. I wasn't really, but I remember I was 11, 10 or 11, and I won a penalty competition for the whole of Scotland to get into the final of the penalty competition, which was held before the 1975, is it? Scottish Cup final at Hampden Park. Celtic were playing Airdrie, might have been 73 or 75. And at half time, it was me and one other guy had the kind of penalty kicks. And in front of 78,000, absolutely no nerves. Even at that age, none. And I won the competition. But then all the Celtic fans were supporting me. And I don't know why they were supporting Patrick, Kevin, Francis, Michael here, rather than Scott McGarvey, who was the guy I was up against. By the way, does that name jump out to anybody listening? Scott McGarvey. See the Scott McGarvey I mentioned there, right? Mm-hmm. He ended up playing with Man United, but he was the guy who was seen as the middleman that got Sam Allardyce sacked in that sting. Remember that when he was the manager of England? So, but anyway, so with that age, 10, 11, wow. I had another penalty competition at Celtic Park for a European game, won that as well, absolutely unfazed. So I managed to get through a whole career and never, ever once felt nervous, ever.
I mean, see when you were down at Everton, I mean, what was it like in Liverpool with the music scene? You must have been in your element, didn't you?
Well, I kind of loved the musical scene in Liverpool. There was a period just before I went there with a lot of bands from Zoo records like Echo and the Bunnyman, Teardrop Explodes, Wah, and they've always had a good scene there. But the thing is, see if you play for Everton or Liverpool, it's like being in Glasgow playing for Celtic and Rangers. It's really difficult just to go about. So I have to be absolutely honest with you. And my whole time there, I spent most of my time in Manchester. So I lived in Chester, but if I went out, I generally went out in Manchester because you wouldn't get bothered really. And it's not that I minded people coming up and saying hello, because people, Liverpool and Everton were always dead nice. But I just wanted a bit of a quieter life. So yeah, I'd go and see bands sometimes. But in actual fact, the Manchester scene was pretty damn good at the time as well.
But I mean, looking through, your time at Everton came to an end, and you moved on to Tranmere. 1992. So what age were you then? Then you were 29.
Yeah, it's probably playing the best.
Is that right? 1992.
Yeah. 28, 29. I was playing the best football in my career, easily. So when I went to Tranmere, I went down a division. Now, another team had tried to buy me at the same time, Galatasaray. So I nearly went to Istanbul. In fact, I went over to Istanbul. I played against them and scored a couple of goals against them. So they tried to buy me. But I'd been in loan with Tranmere for a couple of months because I'd fallen out with Everton manager Howard Kendall. And I'd loved it so much. And with some team, and we were for 3 years in a row, we were in the playoffs to get to the Premier League. We had players like John Aldridge, Tommy Coyne came down to play for us all the way through a team with quality players. So I'd loved it so much. I thought, why would I not go and play for them if they want me to go? So I went to Tranmere, and I probably had 3 or 4, certainly the best I ever played. I played more times for Scotland while I was at Tranmere than all my other clubs put together. So that's how good it was there. And I had a great time.
Did you ever play against England?
I played against England twice.
Yeah.
One of the times we got beat up at Hampden Park 2-0, and the other time we get beat 2-1 at Wembley in an evening game. That was kind of hard to take, but they were both friendlies in a way. But, you know, we didn't think of them as friendlies, but in reality, the kind of real passion had gone out of that game by that time, because they played every year and a lot of people were calling off. So they stopped doing the annual Scotland-England game. And that was a great thing, because then when Scotland-England then met after that, it really meant something. So I didn't play again after that. But here's an embarrassing moment for you. I did play for England. I played for England at Wembley in front of 90,000 people and against the rest of the world. And it was an amazing thing. Diego Maradona was playing that day against us, and it was an extraordinary thing to do. So a wee bit embarrassing playing for England, but it's quite an honour as well.
What was Maradona like?
Well, I was very fortunate. This is going to sound like the biggest name drop you've ever heard in your life, right? I actually got to know and got to become quite friendly with Pelé when I was chairman of the PFA. And he was one of the most magical, fantastic people you could ever meet. And he was, if you had a hero in football, he was the one to have. Maradona is good a player, phenomenal player. As a person, I kind of met him once or twice. I just admired him. I admired the player. That was it, full stop. I thought he was an amazing player. But, you know, in that day, to be fair, I think he wasn't at his best. Is that how delicately I can put it?
Yeah, can follow that. And from there on, you moved to Kilmarnock, worked under Bobby Williamson. How was Bobby Williamson to work under? But you played 34 games.
I probably had the happiest year of my career at Kilmarnock. I loved the place. I loved the people. I loved the ground. We had a decent team. I think we came in a third or fourth in the league. It was amazing. We had this run at the second half of the season, which was fantastic. Bobby Williamson was brought up in Easterhouse, a couple of 100 yards away from where I came from. As I'm talking to you just now, Bobby Williamson sent me a message an hour ago. That's how much I think of Bobby Williamson. I can't show you the message, actually. It's a bit dodgy.
Managed by a previous guest, Billy Davies, as well, at Motherwell.
Well, most importantly, I gave him his job at Motherwell. He was there when I arrived as player chief executive. I was player chief executive, and the owner had basically wanted me to be manager, and I said I'd be crap. So I looked about the dressing room, and there was two or three people in the dressing room I thought they'd be good managers. And one of them was Owen Coyle, who turned out to be a great manager, and the other one was Billy Davies. And it was a toss-up between the two of them. Billy, both of them absolutely driven, totally driven to a level that I wasn't driven, never have been driven in management. So I gave Billy his chance. And, you know, Billy's hard work, but then people think that's a negative thing all the time. Sir Alex Ferguson's bloody hard work. Sometimes you have to be hard work to get your way. And so I went with Billy. It could just as easily have been Owen. And I gave him his chance in the game. And it went well, incredibly well for the first season and a half. But it took us a season and a half to get away from trouble with relegation to battling for third in the league. Now, we had a few quid behind us, nowhere near as much as Hibs and Hearts and Aberdeen. But it was great for a while until the owner pulled the plug with the money, and then it became much, much, much harder. But I mean, very memorable times. In my second book, which is called Football and How to Survive It, the stuff that I write about Motherwell and that, the amount of people that when they read that, they get back in touch and say, well, they like it because it reads like a bloody thriller. but they also say it's one of the most incredible things I've read about football because they never knew what it was like inside it. So, you know, there's a lot about Billy in that, but you know, Billy he became a very good manager, which I knew he would do, and got into the Premier League in England. You don't do that by being rubbish.
No, he could play as well, Billy. He's a player. He's a good player.
Well, we knew each other since we were 12 because he played for the Rangers Boys Club.
Is this through Gary Koch?
No, this was way before that. This was when I was at Celtic Boys Club. So I was at Celtic, and he was at Rangers. So we knew each other, and we played at youth level under 18. So I knew him as a player, and I rated him as a player. So I knew how good he was as a player as well. But we had a lot of good players in that team that came at that point in time, and we were quite often giving Celtic and Rangers a right good run for their money. And the second season, we missed out, I think, by a point to Hearts for finishing third. Now, considering I was a young chief exec, the owner was quite young. Billy Davis was the same age as me, you know, 34, 35. Yet we managed to get a team to the cusp of, you know, as high as you can get. Because you can't get to Celtic and Rangers because their money is just ridiculous in comparison. So very proud of what we've done the first couple of years there.
He's got into Europe as well, and you played Nice, I believe, in Europe as well already.
Yeah, a couple of games. Most of my career that should have been in Europe was I didn't get there because the English teams were banned after the Heysel Stadium disaster. So most of my career, I played some games for Tranmere in the European competition. Then with Kilmarnock, we played against Nice. We played a couple of times actually.
This Kilmarnock, I went backwards.
Yeah, we played against Jesnica. We had a game against an Irish team as well. So it was lovely late on in my career to get an opportunity to play some European football. But it hurt a lot of people more than me. There's a lot of people that lost out in European careers because of what had happened at Heysel Stadium. But remember, I had international football, so I got my fix of playing against top international players because I played for the national team.
And is there a connection between you and Terry Butcher? I read somewhere, but I've not checked it out. Are you related on Terry Butcher?
Yeah, we are. We kept that quite quiet for a long time because we're related by marriage, and it's quite a close relation. But Terry and I played against him when he was at Ipswich. I actually went down to Ipswich for a trial when I was 17. And they wanted to take me on, I think, but I said no because I wanted to finish my degree. The guy called Eric Gates playing there, who was but I played against Terry down there when I was like 17, 16. And I remember playing against him one day, and I was really giving him a hard time, and he was getting really angry because he didn't know we were related. I knew we were, but I hadn't told him. Anyway, many years later, played against him at Ipswich, then played against him with England. And by the end of a career, we got to know each other quite well. And I made him assistant manager at Motherwell when I brought in Eric Black as the manager. I didn't make him. Eric Black came in as manager. I wanted him. And he said, can I bring in Terry? And I went, get in there. I'll do. It might be slightly nepotistic, but he's a top geezer. And even since then, Terry and I obviously work in Radio 5 Live together. So a great guy. Loved it. Loved the big man.
Your career, you retired at 37, and I'm turning the page here. You done a lot of TV punditry and media work as well. I remember that. I'm looking at my age here, and I can remember you doing all that. I can remember you being at Motherwell. But I mean, you've wrote 3 books, you've got an arts degree. Do you ever stop? Do you switch off, or are you just like this all the time?
No, I just love doing things. You know, I've written for just about every national newspaper. You're right. I did a lot of television. There was a period of time there about 10 years ago where I probably had 4 different jobs in TV, but nobody knew because one of them was in Scotland, one of them was in England, and one of them was in Ireland. So they didn't really cross over, you know. Yeah. And I liked that because if you were on the telly all the time, people get fed up with you if you're on the same telly all the time. So I did that, but I love doing it. But the real love, the writing is something that I've always loved. But the real love is I love radio. It's just great fun to do. So I make documentaries, but nothing really probably beats the co-coms. And this week, just to give you a wee flavour of it, I was in Wolves for Wolves v Arsenal. I was in Monaco for Monaco against Aston Villa. The week before that, I was Spurs v Arsenal. Before that, I was at the Liverpool game, and the week before that, I was at the Everton game at Goodison. And I basically spend my whole time going to these brilliant games and commentating them with brilliant guys, because the commentators like John Murray and Ian Dennis and Alistair Bruce Ball and Conor McNamara, we're just a big bunch of mates. And it's like swanning about England, Europe, and the world getting paid to watch football. I mean, really? Can you get a better job apart from playing?
You're still like a fan, yeah. You're still talking like a fan. I mean, every football fan would say the exact same thing. But I'm getting paid to go around the country watching these games and working with these players. And you still see yourself as an ordinary man. Eh? That's the title for your next book, by the way.
It's because I'm just a bloke. People like my daughter, right? Here's a fun thing for you. So because of some of the other stuff I did, like I helped start the anti-racism campaigns in football many decades ago, and that's obviously become very big now. So I was given 2 doctorates for that. So you can call me Dr. Nevin, right? Now they're just honorary doctorates. I never use them, but I only use them on one occasion, right? And that one occasion is when my daughter comes up and gets annoyed with me and says things like, "Oh, Dad," and I stop her and I say, "No, it's Doctor." And do you know why she gets? Do you know why she gets really angry? Because she's a real doctor. She's a medical doctor. And the reason why I'm telling you this and telling the listeners this is because don't get full of yourself because you kick a ball around.
Wow.
Yeah, don't get full of yourself because you kick a ball around. Because see people that do work like that, doctors and teachers and people that do something that really impacting people's lives, they should be proud of themselves. And those are the people that I respect over and above everyone else.
What's the plans for your next part? I mean, what are you sort of, how are you going to keep enjoying yourself? What are you going to be doing with yourself?
Well, I've kind of stopping some of the things that I've been doing for a while. I've got another book that I'm writing at the moment, which is fun because I love writing. I don't get it ghosted, but do them myself. I've cut back in the DJing. I used to do a lot of DJing around the country. I've cut back in that a wee bit. At my age, doing a DJ stint to 3 a.m. and then doing a commentary halfway around the country the next day is just getting a wee bit hard. You know, it's getting a wee bit tougher. But I've got so many things I love doing. It's not a case of what am I going to do next. It's what am I going to try and stop doing. But I'm loving life it is. But if I can possibly do it, as much time with my family. I love time with my wife and my son and my daughter. And as much time as I can do with that, I will do as much of that.
Just before we round up, could I ask you, right, I'm putting you on the spot, but you've been put on the spot with this before. Could you possibly name, if you were to pick a team with yourself in it, an 11, whatever formation, could you pick your best team
that I've played with? Right, I could change that tomorrow if you ask me, but I'll just go off the top of the head, right? So, off the top of the head, would have to be Neville Southall on goal. He was the best goalkeeper in the world at the time when I was at Everton with him, and he was stunning. Andy Gorham was brilliant, play with him, but Nev does it. He was the man. Right back, tough one. Probably, I'll go Stevie Clark, actually. I'll go Stevie Clark. He's phenomenal. Centre backs, I'd probably put Goffey in there. Richard Goff, phenomenal player. Other centre back.
Good job.
I can't put Terry in. I never played with Terry. I played against him. I never played with him. When Hansen was pretty hard to play against. He was a very, very good player, Alan Hansen. And he's Scottish as well, so he gets the nod. Left back, I've got to put a guy called Ian Snodden there. A real surprise one. Surprises a lot of people. But you have to play with some people who know how good they are. And he was absolutely amazing. And if he didn't get an injury when he did, he would have been one of the greats. Another one who's quite like that was a guy called Norman Whiteside. And Norman Whiteside played for Manchester United and Ireland when he was 16. And he was stunning, absolutely stunning. And he was playing in one leg because his knee had been absolutely done. And the other midfielder put the heart, Paul McStay, and probably JC John Collins. Up front, I don't want to pick myself on this team. It's tough. They got the centre forward's hard. Centre forward's hard because I got to put Kenny in there. But I'm actually not going to put me in there. I'm going to put two centre forwards in there. Kenny behind Kerry Dixon and John Aldridge. I played with John Aldridge at Tranmere, and he was absolutely and utterly brilliant scorer. He was as good as Ian Rush, easy. His numbers are better than Ian Rush. People forget it. So, but if you ask me this question tomorrow, I'd probably change about 8 of them.
Thank you to Kingdom Coatings for their incredible sponsorship.